1. This happened in 2006. I was working for a big construction company in Spain, mostly civil engineering and infrastructure, but also had big architectural projects all over the world, especially in the Middle East. Anytime there was a bid for a big juicy contract in the Arabian Peninsula, this company would be there, getting enough of them to make it go global top 100 in their field. There's a lot to be said about how they got to that point, but what matters to this story is they were and are big. Back then, I was working in the planning phase for a project in Dubai. Everything that needed to be done before, actually putting boots on the ground and starting to move massive amounts of dirt. I was meant to actually go live in Dubai for a few years for this project, but I ended up getting a different job at a different company before that happened. Without giving too much detail, it was a multifaceted project that had a big infrastructure aspect to it and a minor architectural one attached to it. I worked in the architecture department. As it often happens with contracts of this scale, the different aspects of the project were subcontracted to smaller firms all over the world. Subcontractors were from many places, ranging from Jakarta to the east coast of the USA. My main role was to gather every plan and rifle the subcontractors sent, register everything for our budgeting department, and make sure it followed the approved basic project, the style Bible, and the technical specs my company, the main contractor, worked with. After all, we were the ones who had to use them later on site. If anything big needed to be changed, I would send back the files with a request for the specific alterations. If the changes were small and fast, I would do them myself, but also send them back detailing the modifications made with the reason, indexing, style, or technical, so the subcontractors could keep working on up-to-date plans. Everything with my supervisor, the lead architect, on copy, of course. Everything was fine, I enjoyed the job, and communication was fluid with all subcontractors. Then came entitled firm. Apparently, the firm we hired to do the plans for the personnel residential buildings in this huge complex had been acquired by a bigger firm from Boston. Mails were not being answered for a month, and we were starting to get worried, but then out of the blue came a big ranty one with lots of attachments. Someone I will call Bob introduced himself as the new project manager. Okay, I guess he manages this project in that firm. He then proceeded to explain everything he wanted to change in the project. He dismissed the basic project, the one approved by the client, proposed a more modern look and a new concept. He even sent a new set of technical specs for the plans with everything from their own layout naming rules to the way every plan was indexed. Oh, and of course, he demanded everything to be expressed in imperial. I had to read it twice to fully grasp what he wanted. From his mail, I gathered Bob didn't understand this wasn't merely a residential development. For example, he wanted to change the providers for most of the installations to ones far more reliable, translation American, without realizing the ones we chose were the ones we could deliver for all the different needs the many buildings in the project needed. I tried to reply in a polite way, explaining why some of his demands were not viable, and why the rest would gravely delay the project. I honestly thought the new firm had little experience in these kinds of projects and tried to be as understanding and thorough as I could, so we could have them working in parallel with the rest of the subcontractors ASAP. When I sent the mail, my supervisor called me. "Prepare for a fun reply." Why, did I say something rude? "You didn't get where the problem is. He thinks they are the lead in this project." Right on the nail. The next day, I got a furious mail from Bob, asking who in the name of Hades I thought I was, how they could find a new construction company in a second, and that hiring cheaper foreign companies always bring trouble in the long run. After consulting briefly with my supervisor, my reply was simply a JPEG with the contractor diagram that figured in the project Bible, and a request for their latest plans to start making changes so they could get up to date. He replied sending those, no apologies. Oh well, at least that was it. Nope. For the next few months, Bob continued to be a rude, loud nuisance. He obviously was so happy with the idea of being the lead on a big international development, he resented just being a small part of an even bigger project. He wasn't ready to work with others, especially foreign others. Here are some examples. He complained about not understanding what other contractors wrote in the mail chains. They all wrote English, but the kind of international English one develops when working with people from many places. He wasn't ready to infer from context or ask. He complained. He even complained about a mail that was perfectly fine. He didn't understand it. It was written by a British person. He complained about the time difference. We scheduled everything on Dubai time, but trying to mind the 11 hours of time zone range between contractors. He kept complaining about calling to the Madrid office and not finding me or the lead because he was calling at 9 p.m. He once told me my country wouldn't get out of the Middle Ages until we started to work on American time. He repeatedly tried to bypass us and contact directly other contractors to order them to make changes to their part of the project, usually to get out of implementing changes ordered by the lead, again, us. Many UAE regulations are and were based on American regulations, but not all. He unilaterally changed things in the projects to adapt them to US code without asking or bothering to read the actual regulations of the UAE. Bob had opinions about any code that wasn't the one he knew of course. At one point he commented on the budget, not his area, but we were just talking, because everything was ultra expensive. Lots of marble, high-end domotics, insulation, etc. This was the Dubai boom, and they spent money like crazies, and projects there were very luxury-oriented. He kept bringing that up, and then he said something along the lines of his taxes being wasted on that. Bob thought every country in the world was subsidized by the US, and there was no way that they could afford that without American help. Thank you for your time. 2. So to start, last week I got taken on a Disney cruise. Father, male in 60, paid for myself, female 29, my daughter, female 8, my brother, male 26, and himself to go on it. The last night of the cruise there was a large prize bingo, which I decided to take a try at, as it would be enough to pay for another cruise, or even the smaller pots would help pay for things well after the cruise ended. It of course was buy-in to play, and they had both proper cards and tablets, which obviously held considerably more cards. They began to sell them 30 minutes before the games actually started. I asked my father and brother well beforehand if they wanted to join me, which they agreed to. So of course when I arrived within the first 10 minutes of sales, I bought 2 family packs and an extra tablet, totaling 5 tablets and 2 paper cards. This was thinking I wouldn't be the only one playing, and it would be put on my father's account anyways if we won. I'd already accounted for it and added funds for these things so we could just play. Well, it gets to be about 2 minutes before the game starts. I'm sat awkwardly shuffling the tablets on the table and handling the 2 cards on my own with no response from messages to my family. This is when a man, Bingo Butthole, came in with a mild attitude. He was grumpy at most, at first at least. He was grumbling about how many people were there, and how there wasn't enough seats. He takes a seat beside me. The other side is a family of 3 with a child somewhere between 3 and 6, sat between the parents. In front of us is another family with 2 small children as well, between 5 and 9. As this is a Disney cruise, they were allowed to play and yell if their card won, since winnings went to the parents anyways. Well, BB looks towards me and starts loudly grumbling about how people have no consideration for other people. I smiled and awkwardly explained I had expected family to join me, but they hadn't showed up. He scoffed, and seemed to start to say something when his wife showed up. Nice wife. She says that because they showed up so late, they only had 1 tablet and 1 paper card left, and she managed to get the last ones. This made BB angry as he raised his voice and started on a rant. Seriously? What the F? How are there so many effing a-holes on this damn ship? BB then turns to me, leering over me. Now I'm a small, crippled woman. My knee has an old injury, making it difficult to walk. And he is a larger man who is now within inches of my face. He begins loudly counting how many tablets I have laid out, and then he continues. How come this effing bitch has so many effing tablets, but we can't get more than 1? Hun, hush, they're kids. She says other things, trying to get him to stop and tugging on his sleeve, looking embarrassed. I look at this man. I smile mostly because it is what happens whenever I get nervous, and I proceed to channel my best customer service voice. Sir, this is a Disney cruise. I suggest you lower your voice and take that attitude of yours and shove it where the sun don't shine. Now inside I was terrified. I have had several bad interactions like this that ended with me bruised at minimum, so I was braced to be hit because his stance looked like he was going to. Thankfully for me, the parents of the children around suddenly descended, while he is starting in on another tirade with many more F-bombs thrown around. Nice Wife ended it by grabbing him by his ear and sharply hissing he needs to stop before they're kicked out or off the boat. They left and moved about 15 feet away from me, where he proceeded to sit and pour the whole time. I noticed partway through the bingo he was actively watching me to see if I was winning or not, which I did not win. I got close a couple of times, but no winning. It was still fun. He didn't win either, which was somehow more satisfying. 3. I'm a 20-year-old woman. I have a lot of horror stories about this coworker, but this one is the most confusing. We'll call her Karen. She is 28 and female. Some context before this bit. I used to work at a semi-fine dining steak place. We hold a tight ship in regards to how we greet, hospitality, menu items, etc. I became lead trainer and sales at one point. Our restaurant was performance-based, so you had to work for the good sections and big parties. Karen took a year break off of serving and decided to come back, but still had to do the 5-day training process since she was gone for so long. I soon found she was a nightmare to work with. After multiple failed tests, lots of coaching and hard work, she finally passed training. She had the mindset of, I've been here longer than you and I'm older than you, so I don't have to listen to you anymore. Well, as lead trainer, it's my job to coach and point out the things I see wrong, kindly, of course. At one point, she reported me to management for bullying and harassment, which went nowhere. We were put on separate shifts due to us complaining about one another, until one day, I got requested for a party of 40 in the morning. It was on a Monday, which I normally don't work, but I was requested, so I happily agree. Karen works Mondays, so she comes up to me as I'm setting up. Why are you setting up for my party? I'm puzzled. I'm sorry. I deserve this party. You weren't even supposed to work today. This party requested me, so I came in. I won't be too much in your hair, I promise. That doesn't matter. Mondays are my days and they should be my table. Besides, I've been here for longer. I deserve this table. We're performance-based, not by time spent. I'm sorry that they requested me. I would suggest going to management if you have an issue. Karen storms off in a huff, and I just keep setting up. My party comes in, I take care of them, and they tip me $300. Awesome. I go to do my checkout paperwork and count my money as Karen approaches on the prowl. So where's my tip share? Probably on your checkout. Don't get smart with me. I want a share of the money from your table. Why? Karen then explodes. I ran a tray of your food. I got one of your people an iced tea, and it was supposed to be my table and you took it from me. I saw the tips you made, and I want $100 of it. It took me everything in my body not to burst out laughing. That's the most insane thing I've ever heard, but I kept a calm face. I won't be doing that. Take it up with management. Karen storms off again, and I hear her yelling from the kitchen. My coworkers look just as puzzled as I am. After about 10 minutes of yelling, I see her storm out of the restaurant and flip me the bird. I ask my manager what happened. She quit, said all of this was unfair and a 20-year-old shouldn't get priority over her, and it was unfair that you get all the good tables. Manager and I talk about it, and I express my empathy and apologize, since it was kinda my fault. All manager said was, "Don't be sorry, she never understood the way we do things. I don't even know why they hired her back. You're totally fine. You deserve those tips. Good riddance." Well, good riddance, Karen. I guess. 4. I'm a 22-year-old British man living in the fine town of Herefordshire, known mostly for cows and an army base. Moo. and my friend is about 3 years older than me. My friend and I have known each other since high school. We were placed in the same special needs unit, as we were both on the autism spectrum. Had the same bully, but we didn't speak much until my second year, year 8 for us fellow Brits, where she showed us a sacred series that bonded us together, a little thing called Yu-Gi-Oh! The abridged series. We watched that all the time when we had allocated computer time, laughing and going episode to episode. She left high school about 3 years before me, but she and I swapped numbers to keep in contact. She's the only high school friend who I've kept up with over the years, and one of the only friends I made in high school. Every weekend we would call and chat for about an hour. Sometimes we would even go out to eat. She was a vegetarian, so we usually stuck to familiar places that did pizzas or Italian food. From Pizza Hut to Pizza Express. R.I.P. This tradition continued through COVID, and even up until I got my apprenticeship working for my local NHS hospital. Shortly after, my friend and I agreed to meet up on Sunday and go out to eat at one of our local Italian places. We ate in her mum's car because the restaurant was full, and had a few loud children. Sensory issues are a bitch sometimes. Afterwards, we went to a chocolate shop for dessert. Here's where things get weird. My friend and I show up, and there's a man with his dog at the front counter. Now, I know a dog in a chocolate place is a recipe for disaster, right? But no, the place we went to had a dogs allowed policy, and all the chocolate was boxed up and out of reach, so who am I to say anything? My friend, however, sees the dog owner as public enemy number 1 and mutters something to me. "Why does that man have a dog in here?" She said in a very annoyed tone. Before I can stop her, she storms over and began demanding him to muzzle his dog or keep it outside while he's in here. Something about a hair getting in the food? I don't know. The dog looked lovely and well-groomed. The man, rightfully annoyed, left, before she turned her ire to the cashiers who explained their dog policy, before she just retreated and went to pick out some chocolate for herself. Now, I didn't say anything initially because I didn't want my friend to perceive it as a challenge, so I just meekly apologized to the cashiers and bought a chocolate sundae before we left. My friend started explaining that she believed all dogs were aggressive and could turn at any time, and that their hair could get in the food and trigger allergies, which she had. I just awkwardly explained that he wasn't doing anything wrong and we dropped it. A few weeks later, I have one of my weekly calls with her. She immediately launched into telling me about another doggy story. She was at a garden center with her mother to admire the plants when she saw a dog doing its business. Before the man could even bend over to pick up the doo-doo, she immediately said, "I hope you're going to pick that up." According to my friend, the man chased her around yelling or something. I don't know how much I trust that. And she had to get away from him in time for her mum to come back from the toilet. At this point, I tried to be blunt and explain that she shouldn't just go around ordering people how to raise their dogs, and that dogs are only aggressive if their owners are bad, abusive people. For context, my family have owned 4 dogs over the time I've been alive, including a German Shepherd, infamously one of the most aggressive dog breeds people think of. He was a lovely, protected friend who we eventually gave to a new home, for no bad reasons, mind. Additionally, my friend said that dogs' feces are toxic to plants, and I tried to explain that they weren't any more than human excrement, and while it's true that some dog owners don't clean up, most do. She kept trying to double down, and I just said I was ending the call early. I needed a break from her and to ask my mum what to do next. We do eventually get back in contact, and she apologizes. I just say not to bring up dog-related incidents to me because I will no longer be getting involved. The reason I bring this up now is because she recently reached out to meet up again. Our regular haunt might be closing down soon, so she wants to go for old time's sake. Mom and I were talking this morning about her past behavior, and at work, I thought about it. I told my mum that if she tried to pull something, I would intervene once more, ask her to stop, and if she didn't, I would call my parents and go right back home, and probably just say to her that I need a break. Hellfreezer's note, I have to wonder if your friend has some sort of trauma related to dogs in the past, and if she does, she really needs to deal with that instead of taking it out on other people. It's not a nice thing to have happen, but it's also not fair to be taking your problems out on people that don't deserve it. But I think you're doing the right thing. Your plan to say you need a break if she does act up again is sensible, and I hope it doesn't come to that for either of you. 5. For those that don't know, a rollator is basically a walker on wheels. I had a stroke 6 years ago, and my balance and vision got messed up. I can walk maybe 20 to 25 feet on a flat surface without help, but I need my rollator to take long walks and take it with me whenever I go somewhere. I normally have weekly groceries delivered to me at my apartment, but every month or 6 weeks, depending on schedules, my mom will take me to a specialty grocery store where I can get a lot of pre-packaged meals that I just have to put in the microwave for a while. We were on one of these trips and were waiting in line checking out. The rollator that insurance covers was a piece of cheap white plastic, so last Christmas my mom bought me one that is black steel and titanium composition. It also has a pouch on the back for storing things, and when I need a break, I can lock the wheels, and it has a fold-out bench I can sit on. So while my groceries were being checked out, I folded out the bench and sat down waiting. When we were done, I got up and unlocked the wheels while my mom rolled out my cart of groceries. I had barely got 5 feet when a lady walked up and grabbed my rollator saying, "I'll take this." I said, "No," and jerked it away from her and proceeded to follow my mom out to the parking lot. Usually my mom will load the groceries in the car while I leave the rollator on the side and walk my way to the passenger seat. After loading the groceries, my mom collapses the rollator and puts it on top of the groceries. This lady followed us out to the car and was waiting there, tapping her foot while we loaded the groceries. I didn't trust her, and I just stood holding the rollator. My mom said, "Go ahead, get in, it's unlocked." And I just shook my head no and tried to subtly point at the lady as to why I wasn't getting in. Mom understood and finished loading the groceries. When she was done, she came up to me, folded down the rollator while I walked to the passenger side door. Mom folded it down, put it on top of the bags in the car, and was closing the door, when the lady started shrieking about how we were stealing store property. I don't know if someone got him or what, but a manager type came out and asked what was going on. The lady screamed about how we were stealing the rollator and she needed to use it. The manager asked my mom about it, and she said it was mine, and she even showed him the plaques bolted on that had my name, emergency contacts, and medications and the schedule I was on in case I needed them. The lady kept screaming that she needed it now that we were done, and the manager told her that it was mine. It had information on it that pertained only to me, and that if she needed help, they could find her a mobility scooter or something. She didn't like this, and suddenly went from shrieking harpy to sweet old lady saying, "Well, maybe she could leave it here and I could use it, and leave it when I'm done for them to come back and get." The manager asked, "Would that be okay with you?" And my mom, knowing we would never see it again, said that we couldn't. We had other places to go where I would need it. The lady began screaming again while we just drove off. I don't know how it ended up for the manager, but I hope he survived it. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 173. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please hit the like button, as that lets YouTube know you liked the video and that they should recommend it to others. If you'd like to support me and therefore the channel, you can do that by supporting me on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. You'll also find a link there to my Discord server, as well as my merchandise store on Teespring. And if you'd like to leave a tip for today's video, you can do that by clicking on the heart with a $sign underneath the video player. That is never required, but I do very much appreciate it if you choose to do so. Okay. No other bits and bobs today, so let's move along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: for those of you who enjoy partaking in caffeine, do you start your day with a coffee or some other form of caffeine? Or do you like to wait until later? Personally speaking, as you know, I do enjoy my caffeine. I generally like to wait till a little bit later in the day, and I find I enjoy it more. That's what works for me personally. And if you don't like caffeine, how do you get yourself going in the day? What's your routine that helps wake you up? Let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's have a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And this comes from Idiots in the Wild 172 and was, is there a line from a song that hits you emotionally every time you hear it? And today's answer comes from D. McLaurin. A song that hits me in the feels is Feel by Robbie Williams. Accurately titled, for me it's a Try Not to Cry song. Nice video too with Daryl Hannah, I believe. Thank you very much for your answer, D. McLaurin. I'd forgotten about that song, but I'm pretty sure I've got it on an album somewhere. Sit and talk to God. He just laughs at my plans. My head speaks a language I don't understand. Yeah, that's quite a good song. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening and take very good care of yourself.